Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty fascinating, I think. We're looking at a specific body of spiritual thought, a kind of divine curriculum, and the focus is on personal awakening, but also world peace. And here's the twist. We're examining it through the lens of neuroscience and, believe it or not, quantum physics.
It really is a unique synthesis. The sources we're diving into analyze these teachings, often called Shiv Baba's teachings. And importantly, we're not just looking at the philosophy. The claim is that certain mental practices taught here have, well, measurable effects on the brain and maybe even on collective consciousness.
Okay, right. So let's try and unpack that. There's this core idea, almost like an equation they present, ruchi, which is interest plus nasha, like a deep awareness or intoxication, plus shuddhavana, pure intention. And all that equals world transformation. So our mission today is to see how modern science might interpret those pieces.
And it's key to remember the starting point here. The source material claims this isn't just, any knowledge. It's presented as a divine curriculum coming from what they call supreme consciousness. That context is pretty crucial for understanding the kind of mental state they're aiming for.
Got it. So let's dive into that first part, ruchi. Interest, engagement. The teaching itself sounds quite encouraging. It says, "Mith bache baba aaye hai tumme bahut ruchi se pathane tum bhi ruchi se pado," meaning the divine teacher teaches with great interest, so you should learn with interest too. Nasha rahe ki humko patane wala swa bhagwan hai. Basically, hold this deep awareness, this nasha, that your teacher is God himself.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant example, really, of how a spiritual framework can be used to, well, potentially trigger specific neurochemical responses. When a student truly holds that awareness, God is my teacher, it's not just a nice thought. The source suggests it creates what we could call a state of elevated engagement.
Okay, but hang on. Couldn't that just be, strong belief, like confirmation bias, or even a placebo effect? If I really believe God is teaching me, I'm probably going to feel pretty good about learning, right? Which means dopamine. How do we separate that from the teaching itself?
That's a fair question and a critical one. The source material seems to counter the simple placebo idea by focusing on what this state achieves neurologically. It suggests that this focused, devotional learning, the ruchi, doesn't just feel good, it actually increases baseline levels of dopamine, which drives motivation and focus, and also serotonin, which helps stabilize mood. So the outcome is described as genuine learning, enthusiasm, and clarity, not just a temporary high.
Okay. So ruchi is like the spark plug, providing the neurological juice, maybe.
Where does the second part, Nasha, fit into this neurochemistry picture? Nasha acts more like the stabilizer, you could say. It's that deep, constant awareness and the intoxication that I am learning from the Supreme. This constant realization, this nasha, is what keeps that initial dopamine boost from just being a fleeting feeling. It helps maintain that elevated state, turning temporary neurological shifts into something more like a stable neurospiritual awakening.
Right. So the simple formula they hint at, love or maybe devotion plus curiosity, which is basically ruchi held steady by nasha. That combination equals soul learning and potentially permanent transformation.
Exactly. It draws a direct line from a devotional state to potentially measurable changes in the brain, maybe even neuroplasticity. It reframes enlightenment, in a way, as achieving and maintaining a stable, high-frequency brain state.
Okay, that covers the individual level. But the teaching's goal is much bigger, isn't it? It talks about Vishva Shanti, world peace, establishing a kingdom of peace and happiness in the world. That implies something collective, not just personal transformation. How does an individual's brain chemistry scale up to that?
Well, this is where the analysis shifts gears a bit, moving from sort of internal neurochemistry towards physics, quantum mechanics specifically. The source defines the soul itself as an inherent vibrational field. So if the goal is collective, we need to look at how these individual vibrational fields might interact.
And that brings in this idea of vibrational contagion, doesn't it?
That's the term used, yes. The concept is that when one soul stabilized by that nasha state we talked about consistently generates elevated thoughts of peace, purity, goodwill, that sustained high frequency starts to influence the fields around it. It's called the resonance effect. Think of tuning forks strike one, and another nearby might start to vibrate too. One peaceful mind could subtly influence others.
So the path to world peace, according to this model, isn't primarily political or through changing external structures. It's more about a cumulative energetic shift happening non-locally, driven by potentially millions of individuals synchronizing their inner frequency.
That's the neuroquantum premise being explored. If enough people engage in focused meditation, consciously sending out peaceful thoughts, The idea is they collectively shift the frequency pattern of what could be called global consciousness. It's like adjusting the entire system through energetic signals.
This really leads us into how the source material views existence itself, the structure of it all. We need to talk about the ultimate goal, and maybe what it isn't. The teaching describes the universe as an eternal drama, a cyclic energy system. And fascinatingly, it argues no soul can actually escape this cycle. Your part, your role is fixed.
That's a huge philosophical point, and it completely reframes the objective of spiritual practice, doesn't it? If we look at this cosmic drama idea through a scientific lens, you could maybe draw an analogy to something like the law of conservation of energy. Energy isn't created or destroyed, it just changes form. In this model, the soul's essence isn't destroyed either, its role within this. Well, this closed-loop cosmic simulation just changes from one birth to the next.
But wait, if my part is fixed and I can't get out of the cycle, then what's the point of all the spiritual effort? Why strive if I'm just going to come back and play another role anyway?
Ah, the point shifts. It moves away from external escape towards internal mastery. The source material clarifies that the traditional idea of moksha liberation as a final exit from the cycle isn't really the goal here, because the drama itself is seen as eternal. True liberation, or what they call sadgati, which means the right direction of energy, is actually a state of mind you achieve within the ongoing cycle.
Okay, a state of mind. What does that look like neurologically, according to this interpretation?
The liberated state, this sadgati, is described in terms of quieting down the brain's primal survival centers. Specifically, the amygdala, that's our fear and stress processor, and the hippocampus, which holds on to past traumas and memory patterns. When these areas become quiet, calm, the soul, theoretically, can then vibrate at its original inherent frequency, which is described as peace and purity, regardless of what's happening in the external drama.
So liberation is really about achieving a kind of internal regulatory stability, being able to hold that peaceful frequency no matter what role you're playing on the stage.
That's a very good way to put it, yes. Which brings us nicely to the final part of that initial equation, Shuddhavana, or pure intention, and how that pure intention is used for what the Source calls Mansa Sewa service through the mind, through thoughts.
Right. The teaching says that Sachi Sewa, true service, isn't primarily about words or actions. It's achieved through vibrations, through your thoughts, aimed at the vibrational upliftment of the world.
And here we loop back to measurable energy again. The neuroscientific perspective suggests that when we generate genuinely benevolent thoughts, our internal state shifts towards what's called heart coherence. This connection between the heart and brain actually generates a measurable electromagnetic field, an EMF, and studies suggest this field can radiate outwards, physically, up to maybe 3 or 4 meters. So that's tangible evidence, you could say, that our thoughts aren't just abstract things, they create actual energy fields.
Okay, 3 to 4 meters. Well, it's significant. But how does that bridge the gap? How does my little 3-meter field of peaceful thoughts help someone across the globe or contribute to shifting global consciousness? That seems like a big leap.
The leap is explained by the quality of the intention. This is where Shuddhavana becomes absolutely critical. Pure intention means thought sent without ego, without any expectation of reward, without wanting the receiver of the thought to change in a specific way you desire. It's completely unconditional goodwill.
So the purity is about the lack of ego attached to the thought. High quality, clean energy, maybe?
Exactly. Ego-free thought, the analysis suggests, vibrates at a very high frequency, often spiking into the gamma range, maybe 40 to 100 hertz. Neuroscientists sometimes call these gamma waves the lights of consciousness. When thoughts reach this level of purity and frequency, the soul essentially becomes a highly effective energy transmitter, capable of purifying the collective field, not just the immediate vicinity.
And this is where the Source makes that really bold claim about the speed of thought, connecting it to quantum physics.
It does. The teaching suggests that when these high-frequency, pure thoughts, stabilized by nasha and generated in silence, are transmitted, they travel, well, faster than light. This is presented as a kind of practical application of quantum entanglement. The idea is that souls can be energetically interconnected regardless of distance. So Shubh Sankalp, which means positive resolve or pure thought, becomes an instantaneous instrument for service.
Okay, wow, that ties it all together. Which brings us to the payoff, the goal, the peace prize. The teaching defines it quite poetically. Shifting from being a resident of hell to a resident of heaven is the prize.
And interpreting that through our neurospiritual lens, it's clearly not about getting an external trophy, it's an internal frequency shift. The hell is the low vibration state. Fear, anger, greed, internal conflict, basically, neurological instability. The heaven is the high vibration state. Peace, purity, love, stability.
So the real peace prize is achieving and maintaining a stable, pure, coherent mind.
Precisely. Neurologically, it might correspond to a state of theta-gamma harmony, that calm yet highly aware and integrated brain state often seen in experienced meditators. You can even connect it to the source's blessing of Amarjyoti, the immortal light. That concept parallels those sustained high-frequency 40 Hz gamma waves that scientists link with peak awareness and consciousness. Holding on to that inner light is the prize.
That really clarifies the goal. Okay, so for you listening, let's distill this down into some practical takeaways. The dharana, the application points that blend ruchi, nasha, and shuddhavana. Let's go through the 4 main ones. First, read or listen with ruchi. Engage actively with curiosity.
Yes, absolutely. Treat this kind of spiritual study seriously, like you would a challenging course. Engage your mind, maybe even take notes, mentally or physically. Yeah. Get into that active learning mode. It helps harness that dopamine for actual stable learning, not just fleeting interest.
Second point, hold shuddhavana, pure intention. Does that mean? Like if I'm sending peaceful thoughts to someone, but secretly I just wish they'd stop annoying me, it doesn't count.
Well, according to the principle, essentially yes. The purity is key. Shuddhavana is about non-conditional service. The intention is just to uplift, offer benevolence, without any strings attached, without wanting to control or change them to suit your own needs. The lack of ego is the measure of its purity.
Okay. Third point, this sounds powerful. A thought experiment. Sit in silence for, say, 10 minutes and visualize waves of peace spreading out from you across the world.
Right. Actively use that potential EMF field we talked about, that 3 to 4 meter zone of influence. Consciously generate those high-frequency gamma waves through sustained visualization and genuine goodwill. It's presented as a practical way to contribute energetically to the collective field, like flexing a muscle, but as a mental vibrational muscle.
And the final practical point, practice ego-free self-talk. Regularly remind yourself, I am a soul, God is my teacher, I am here for service.
Yes, this loops back to maintaining that nasha state. It's like setting your internal compass. It reinforces that foundational awareness, helping to keep your mind frequency high and ensuring your inner dialogue becomes an engine for service, rather than just, personal worries or drama.
So looking back on our deep dive today, it seems this synthesis suggests that things like personal devotion, focused awareness, and pure intention aren't just abstract concepts. They might have genuinely measurable effects, neurologically and maybe even vibrationally, that could actually contribute to wider stability.
It seems the analysis holds across these different fields, yeah?
Yeah.
That original equation, ruchi plus nasha plus shuddhavana, it maps onto these scientific interpretations in a really interesting way, ultimately pointed towards world transformation starting from within.
So, for you, the listener, digesting all this, if these teachings, supported by hints from physics, suggest our thoughts can potentially travel faster than light and create measurable energy fields, well, it really makes you think, doesn't it? What kind of responsibility might we feel now, knowing the potential power and reach of the quality, the purity of our own everyday internal monologue?
Perhaps the invitation is simply this: let your pure thoughts become the light of world peace.